Hey all, this is Chase from the All Blue Crew, taking a look at my Saturday morning locals here playing Red Purple Law. For round one, we're going to be playing against Bonnie. Bonnie is typically the kind of matchup where I want to go as fast as possible. Once Bonnie kind of hits their 9-10 Don turn, consistently after a few turns of having 10 Don, makes life a little bit harder for Law. And so typically my goal is to try to be as aggressive as possible, and I do end up keeping, I believe this was I think this was a mulligan. I am on the draw here. Bonnie did take the play. I'm pretty happy with going either on the play or the draw with Red Purple Law. I do have a pretty nice 3-5 curve with things like Zoro Juro into Kid and Killer or Kid Blocker, or into Miss All Sunday. So I have some like a pretty solid curve for that for if I'm forced to go first, but you know, obviously Law does a lot better when you go second. And so my hand here's got a Zoro Juro, 2 Sachi and Penguins, a Law blocker, as well as a Kid. And looks like opponent's just gonna go with a Bonnie into a Bonnie Search. Pretty easy pickings for me next turn. I could swing 5 in a Bonnie Bow. It might actually be worth bottom decking Bonnie and instead trying to put on the aggression on the opponent and just try to continue to deal damage to their life and try to get cards out of their hand, just because the game does get a lot harder as it goes on. Bonnie going to send 5 into lead. I'm pretty happy with taking this first hit just because I know I have a Zoro Juro I'm going to drop down, and again, Zoro Juro does not get any value until you are at 3 or less life. So I'm going to go ahead and take that hit. Going to draw into the Toy Law with a Queen blocker in hand. I think the goal this turn is to play out the Zoro Juro, potentially swing 6 with lead, and then probably bottom deck that Bonnie, and probably play out like one of the best cards you can play out in the early game is that Sashi Penguin, being able to get back 2 rested Dawn. So I also have, so that will set me up with 3 Dawn at the end of the turn, which will set me into 5 Dawn, which will allow me to play my Kid the next turn, or potentially do something with like the Toy Law, because I did see him put the Rouge blocker in hand, and that 4K or 4-cost 5K blocker is just so good. It is amazing in that deck. It turns on Bonnie's ability. So yeah, swinging 6, he does 2K out of it. I am just going to use the leader effect, gonna bottom deck Bonnie, not commit any resources to actually, trying to kill Bonnie by attacking it. Instead, just try to hate on the hand. And then we're gonna put the Sachi Penguin to take myself down to 3 next turn. Zoro Juro potentially is going to get to attack and get me a Dawn, depending if Bonnie rests it or not. Sometimes Bonnie players tend to rest the cards that can attack willingly without any Dawn commitment, so I'm not really worried that Zoro Juro is going to get rested on this next attack. Likely Shachi and Penguin or my leader is going to get rested, but we're going to see what I have to do here potentially. Going into 5 Dawn, I could attach 1 to Zoro Juro and just kind of recycle it on. He does send 6k lead. I don't want to go down to 2 just yet, just because if Bonnie finds like the Cavendish and like maybe Hody Jones, I could be dead, quicker than that. Bonnie is very good at putting up a defensive, but also very good at, being very aggressive. Alright, up to the 5 Dawn turn, we do see an Rouge. We do want to get rid of that Rouge. I did find myself a Gordon. In hindsight, maybe should have pitched the Otama if I was going to go into a Kid and Killer attack with Zoro Juro kind of play. I am eyeballing that Kid blocker in hand. Likely what we're going to do here is just send 4 at lead potentially to try to get the ramp, take myself up to 6, and then play the Kid blocker, and then use the other additional Dawn to play that Raise Max to bottom deck that Rouge. Just thinking here how I want to do it. Typically against Bonnie, you want to bottom deck things last because you don't want them to tap down potentially something really cool that you're about to play. So I'm going to go ahead and send 4 at lead. He is going to activate Bonnie's effect. I am going to ramp 1. He's going to tap my leader, which is fine. I still got another 5k swing I can send at him. And then I'm going to play out, I could play the Queen as well instead to draw some cards, but my hand is looking pretty nice right now. Though later in the game I'm potentially going to want to find some additional finisher pieces, but we're going to go ahead and start with the Kid blocker. Honestly, the linchpin of the deck, probably honestly one of the best cards in the deck. just kind of allowing you to offset, turns your leader effect into a -2 and sets up one of your Dawn basically. Very, very strong. And I think we're trying to decide what we're going to play off of the effect. So we're going to go ahead and tap 1. We're going to activate Raise Max, target the Rouge, setting it down to a 2 cost. I think I just set off my phone there. Rouge, I guess, sounds very close to Google. And then we're going to bottom deck it. And then looking at a card I want to play here, I'm pretty sure Bonnie has a stacked hand, but not enough cards for that blocker lull to take effect. But I am in that kind of sweet spot still where I can play another Sachi and Penguin. Because I am at 3 Dawn, I'll go up to 5 Dawn. And then Kid will get me back that additional Dawn. So that bottom deck was free. It was free this turn. So next turn I'm going to go up to 8 Dawn, which is pretty nice for Law. Law can do a lot when you sit in a very high Dawn range. I am going to send 6 at lead, and they are going to take it, getting themselves down to 4 life. I have a pretty solid board right now, though I did use one of my other 2Ks in hand. That is the downside of Sachi and Penguin, is if you do play it out, that's 1 less 2K in hand, but it is a very, very strong card. And here in the early game, just to kind of recoup resources, very good at keeping myself at a high Dawn total. Because the higher Dawn I have, the more I can pressure, right? The more I can send 6 and 7Ks into lead to really put the pressure on. And it looks like the opponent is on their 6 Dawn turn. This is kind of the turn I'd expect, I believe, for them to play out a Hawkins. I think here, or sorry, they're on their 7 Dawn turn. They're going to go ahead and just play out 2 blockers. So I'm honestly like fine with that, right? Hawkins is annoying because it's a 7K blocker, and if I try to remove it, it'll just tap one of my things. I honestly ignore Hawkins. Hawkins comes out, I ignore it. So this play is actually a little more annoying to me because it's two blockers, right? That I can ignore them, but that they're gonna soak up damage potentially. It's gonna go ahead and set up 1 Dawn. Could have potentially attacked 6 into lead. I'm not sure what that extra Dawn is for. Don't know if this is a Bonnie deck that runs Punk Gibson. But go ahead and untap here. We are sitting nice and pretty right now. We're at 8 Dawn. We are like on the standard roll here, right? So we would have gone to 8 Dawn this turn anyways if we hadn't done all the minusing shenanigans. But it just shows you how powerful Law is. And I do find my spicy tech, that Ein, the 7-drop Ein, it is a character that 6K character, when it on plays, it sets the power of a character to 0. So it's kind of my ace in the hole. It is a card that I'm running a 1 of fun of, but I'm honestly thinking about upgrading it to 2 of, because it is just such a good card, and it can really surprise your opponent when you take down a big threat. And Bonnie, man, they're full of big threats. They have the 8 cost Kid, 9 cost Zoro, 10 cost Doflamingo. So I know that Ein is probably going to get some value at some point. But this turn, I potentially could play Toy Law and bottom deck through Rouge if I really wanted to, or I could just kind of go a little aggressive. I could attach 1 Dawn to the Zoro Juro to give it to basically recycle a Dawn, or I could likely what I'm going to do is swing with my Kid first. The Kid's not going to be blocking anyways, because as soon as I attack with something else other than the Kid blocker, Bonnie will rest the Kid blocker. So it's always good to attack with your strongest things first, or else Bonnie will rest it. So that Kid blocker is probably going to be the first one to swing here. I'm thinking what I want to do. I'm also like, I've got the Law in hand, the blocker Law, and sometimes I like to try to bait the opponent into taking a bunch of hits potentially. So we're actually gonna swing 6 here, and we're gonna test the Bonnie player and see what the Bonnie player does. It's likely they're gonna rest Kid here. My thought was potentially, I kind of wanted the Zoro Juro to just be able to pressure life, but also just get me a Dawn up. And now I'm up to 9 Dawn with 2 Dawn used. So I think I was a little afraid of them potentially resting that. But in most situations, Bonnie players very rarely rest the lowest attack power. Then we're going to go ahead and just attach 1. We're going to send 6 to lead because they just took a 6. Since they took a 6, it makes me wonder if they're going to take another one, right? Maybe they don't have a 2K, a very easy counter. They do just take another hit. And I think at this time, this question, I'm like, all right, how many cards you got in your hand potentially? I think they're at 6 cards in hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's 6 cards. We're going to think here we have 6 Dawn open. I could potentially play a blocker lull out if I wanted to. We're going to just send 6 elite again. It's worked once. It's worked twice. Will it work a third time? No. It looks like they finally got a 2K, or they finally had enough. I'm surprised they're not blocking here. We've got 5 Dawn. We're going to go ahead and pay 4. And here's that situation where I'm actually electing to get rid of the Arouge at the end of my turn. So we will make some room on the board here, play out a Toy Law. Toy Law is going to come in and give minus 2,000 to the Arouge, making it a 3,000 eligible for me to bottom deck with Law. And then we're going to go ahead and I always like to take the Dawn from underneath the characters. It's just Dawn I don't have to remove later. And minus 3 to bottom deck that. I do think about playing, and I'm probably just going to play the blocker Law out just to replace one of my rested characters. And I think at this point I decided that Zorojuro has kind of done everything it needed to do. And instead I won't want to, just have a board full of 5Ks. I am still at 8 Dawn. Or no, 7 Dawn. I'll go up to 9 Dawn next turn. Still sitting pretty, and I think we're just going to attach 2 and swing 7 at lead. If they decide to block with the Doflamingo blocker, I'm not upset about that. But this 7K swing does pressure a lot on their hand. They're going to go ahead and block with that. And they're now up to their 9 Dawn turn. This is the turn that they could play the Kid, attach 1 Dawn, and rest it to force me to have to attack into an 8K body. Kind of being a very good blocker for them with their very large hand. But I have the secret sauce. I've got the secret formula right now, and that is Ein. Ein's gonna come down, and regardless of what he plays, unless it's a Basil Hawkins, I will be able to handle it. And I could handle a Basil Hawkins as well. He is going to start with a Cavendish. Cavendish, typically the kind of card Bonnie wants to see a lot earlier in the matchup, but they see it now, so it's going to come back, reset some Dawn, and then they're going to play the Hawkins, which is going to use the rest of their Dawn there. And so now they did play out that Baby 5 earlier. I think they, talking to them after the game, they actually thought that was the Baby 5 Searcher when they played it. And I was like, no, it's that's not the Baby 5 Searcher. But it is the Baby 5 that they can destroy it or trash it at the end of turn and set up 2 Dawn. So this is a way for them to still be able to rest one of my things on my turn. So the reason for that at the end of the turn, going to go ahead and set up 2 Dawn by trashing the Baby 5. Alright, here's my tip against Bonnie. Bottom deck the Cavendish. Always bottom deck the Cavendish. Cavendish and Urouge, those are your 2 biggest bottom deck targets. Basil Hawkins, ignore. Just ignore. I always recommend just ignore it. I'm not even going to attempt to do anything with it this turn. I think this turn I'm just going to push 7Ks. I might just swing a bunch of 7s and use the 1 Gordon to bottom deck the Cavendish and play out the Reiju. Reiju, a very sweet pickup this turn, able to allow me to refill my hand. I am at 9 Dawn, so I could potentially go 2K, 2K, or 7K, 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 at least 4 7K swings, and then play the Raise Max. And right now I think that's what I'm contemplating. Still got and then I'll minus 3 Dawn, get 1 Dawn back. So I'll still be at 7 Dawn and then going to 9 again for the next turn. So feeling pretty good. That means Ein is still on lock for next turn. If Bonnie does slam down something very strong. Bonnie is only at 2 life. If I draw Kid and Killer is also live to get plus 2K. So we're gonna go ahead and just start. We're gonna start the 7s. All right, here's my first 7. Bonnie's gonna go ahead and rest something. They're probably gonna rest my Law blocker, as the rest of the characters are all just vanillas at this point. So they're just 5Ks. So my Law blocker is likely to get rested here. He decides, or no, I thought he was gonna decide to rest that, but he actually just wanted to read and see what it did. It's just non-play, and I believe he decides to rest the Law blocker. That then allows me to swing another. Oh, so he actually rests the leader. Okay. I definitely would have rested the Law blocker there. Just at the end of the day, the leader is just another thing that you can't attack, right? You can't kill my leader unless you get rid of all my life. But if you tap one of my characters, you could potentially kill that on your next turn. And then they're just gonna take the swing. So they take the 7K. Swinging 7Ks when they have a Hawkins out again is so good because they still have to block with Hawkins and use a resource from hand, right? If you give them a 6K, it's a pretty easy block. But often you can also catch them if you under attack, swing 5 or 6K. If they block with the Hawkins, you could use the rest of your Dawn to kill the Hawkins if you really wanted to kill the Hawkins. half the time I just ignore it. So setting off, just making sure we have one Dawn set aside for that raise max. I think what we're going to do here is just go 7-7-6 at this point and leave the law blocker up potentially, or actually attack with everything, because we just want to pressure. We want to pressure just as hard as we can. And debating here if they want to counter, they end up blocking with the Cavendish and then using a 2k to save, or sorry, the Cavendish, the Basil Hawkins. And I'm just going to go ahead and send 7 again. I'm starting to really question, you know, what's in the opponent's hands. Are they just like hard bricking? So I decided to instead just go 8k lead here. And yeah, that they just hard bricked. Two kids, a Zoro, a Hawkins, and a... they only had 1k counter in hand, so that was... I didn't even get to finish the rest of my game plan, but that was a pretty aggressive turn, and I was able to take Bonnie down pretty quickly. And we'll see you guys in round number 2.